One, two, 1, 2. This is a recording. This is not a live show. Big shout out to Andy PG.
Word to your nan.
Yeah, it's Friday night. This is Rise Above TV. And like I said, we are not live tonight. You have got a selection of clips. The main one is from, I don't know if it was the first time Jason Arcades came on the show, maybe the second, but it was an early, really good episode with Archaics. So enjoy that. Don't forget to get your tickets for the next Weekender, which is August Bank Holiday. Let me just get here. We've got 2 new guests added to the lineup. Dave Murphy, allegedly Dave, contacted me. He wants to be a part of the event. And we've also got Graham Moore, Daddy Dragon. That is as well as Martin Leitke.
For the full weekend.
Wisdom of Mushrooms, Toroidal Dynamics. The lineup is increasing by the day. Get your tickets now. The QR code is right here on the screen.
Scan the Schwab code, guys.
There you go. Scan the Schwab code. And also, don't forget to get on Patreon. We've just been in the studio, myself and Andy PG.
We've been doing a watch party with some Middle Eastern Quithopic
dark magic.
Yeah,
that was a good one. And we also just recorded another midweek Raw, which will be coming out next Wednesday.
With many juicy topics, but we simply cannot discuss here.
Yeah, you know, those really juicy topics. Okay, so yeah, don't forget to get your tickets for Raw Weekender Part 2, August Bank Holiday.
We'll see you back at Rise Above on Friday.
We'll see you then. Over and out.
Word.
when you've seen the colourful explosions and the entities and the picture puzzle doorway and the technicolored rabbit hole, you're flying down that. When you get to the end of all that, and you've really got to the end, there is just a shimmering. And you've seen the massive creator monster thing. There is a shimmering blackness, and it's that is the part which is very scary to some people, and is actually what has been described as being one of the most terrifying things, is to be confronted with absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And that's the ultimate control mechanism, isn't it? Because people are afraid of death. And that veil, that mystery, is never really explained to us truly. And they leave it like that on purpose, so that to maintain and even harness that fear of death.
Yeah.
Because with that fear of death, they can pull off exactly what they've pulled off in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I've made it clear a long time ago that I have no fear of death. Of course, it's going to be a concern to me if I'm confronted with death, but it's not my ultimate fear, because through my own practice, I practice, I guess you could say, acclimatizing myself with that, even the sensation of nothing. So yeah. I will use my attention, my consciousness as the affirming force or the light, and I will direct my attention into the body, which is the dark, which is, you could say, death, the matter. And with the balancing of that, you become free. But when you're always projecting into the light all the time, and this is why I often joke about love and light, the Love and Light Brigade ultimately could be, and I think potentially is, the ultimate trick to the recycling.
We could be talking about the fail-safe mechanisms of the loose trap here. Yeah. The reset mechanism that tricks us into keep coming back against our will. Our best nature is to try and avoid death. That's what's been drummed into the meat suit since it was conceived into the realm. Life is short.
I said to you that before, that in esoteric teaching, the humans didn't have the same sense of self, and actually the ego was some kind of artificially inseminated program to give a greater sense of self, because humans actually reached a point where they didn't care if they were alive or not, and then it became non-productive for the factory of life, for the process. So there's basically, we're going through phases where they have to balance out either being too selfish or too selfless. So you could say it's a fine tuning.
It changes the quality of the loosh, I guess.
Yeah.
Same as go on. I was just saying, the same as the farmer. When you're farming like a bespoke beef, and you're telling your customers what is being fed on to get a particular taste of the meat. It's been fed on, organic grass. It's been corn fed or whatever. It's to change the product that's coming out the other end. Maybe the loosh is particularly delicious when we're living on this cycle that we don't realize that we're infinite beings. This is just a temporary meat suit. This is it. When you die, you die. You never see your family and your friends again. They're separate to you. You'll miss them. Maybe that makes the loosh taste better.
Yeah, and going back to this kind of the void or the light. I mean, if you get it wrong, you just get to come back again. So it's not the end of everything. But I will just add, it is said that there will be a percentage that will will be trapped forever somewhere. There is no evolution for them. So there is that potential, and that has been factored in this food chain or ray of creation.
They would be the equivalent of sort of like, a constant stock on a genetic farm.
This is deep.
Yeah, this is deep.
Well, I would actually say, right, that some of these characters behind a lot of what's going on right now, maybe it's them. Maybe they know they're stuck. so therefore they don't care. There's nowhere for them to go. So why would they? So for most people, they have a conscience, and they have this kind of inner knowing that you should do right by people, because in the end, it will come back to you. Yeah. Like karma. Now, there's some people that just don't have that. Now,
they're like lifers in the prison.
Yeah, if there's no reward for them because they've literally gone past the threshold of karmic return, that they're stuck, they're trapped for eternity. You can't give them anything that will make them behave themselves. There's no reward for them, so they just do what they want.
Yeah. Life is in a prison is the main analogy. People that go into the prison that have got 5 years, they have an incentive to be well behaved, not to get covered in scars, not to get involved in much worse things in prison than they're doing outside because they want to get out. The lifers, they operate on a completely different dynamic. They know they're never going to leave prison. They have practically nothing to lose. And that's why they go around doing whatever they want to the other prisoners. And, you know, we all know about that kind of stuff. So what we could be dealing with, I can't remember who put it like this, but they're saying if this is a simulation, imagine if some people got unplugged in the real world, looked like a Matrix thing. If your meat suit got unplugged in the real world or turned off and your consciousness just got trapped here in this simulation and you knew that was the case, how would you act with everyone that was passing through? You know, you would have a level of remorse. You would have complete bitterness, total hopelessness that could turn you.
You'd act like the lifers in jail.
Yeah, act like the lifers in jail, mixed with psychopathy, but also not only that. Think the lifers in jail, they have a bit of extra knowledge about the way that a prison works. Maybe some of them got deals with the prison guards. Maybe some of them got the prison guards in their pockets, right? But it doesn't compare to the knowledge that these entities have about the realm compared to us. It's no comparison between a freshman in a prison that's just got his butthole widened and a lifer. They're much closer in their knowledge of the prison than we are to the lifers here. I hope I'm getting that right across.
Yeah. What do the lifers do? They get to control everything, don't they? They even control the guards.
Yeah. The guards work for the lifers.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the thing, because the guards might only work in the prison for 5 years or 10 years, or maybe their whole life. The lifers' lives are infinite in this prison.
Yeah,
infinite lifers. Yeah, we'll finish at 1.
Did you want to play a video?
No, Good Vag was just for a break. I think we might have coined a new term, infinite lifers. This is a good one because it really does describe.
And it explains why, or it explains the trivium of these characters that do the things that they do.
Yeah.
Like we sit here, we can't believe how somebody would do that. Well, this explains how somebody could do it.
They have absolute remorse for the realm and all of the transient, temporal meat suit in ignorant occupants that pass through their infinite prison. King David Icke, as most people know him, he talks about this a lot in the Children of the Matrix book. That what you could be up against with these, he was talking about reptilians back then / Archons. What you could be talking about is recumbent, algorithmic entities. They're actually just sort of like stuck here, running out some awful script, you know.
Apparently, there's a worse place. There's a type of cosmic isolation chamber so it would be the equivalent of where you put all the lifers together. So there's no interaction with those that are transiting through this realm. I guess this would be the equivalent of Steiner's eighth sphere. They have to be isolated because they start to contaminate the food chain, the ray of creation.
A bit like where they put all the serial nonces on a certain wing in a prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Well, yeah, this is we're getting down to the nub here. Yeah, if this is a soul prison, okay. See, that's the thing. None of us have ever been on the nonce wing. We haven't even conceived what those monsters are like there. Whoa. Yeah, because that's talked about in the Law of One in the Ra channelings. That there is there is another, I think it talks about another Earth that's just that's only lower fourth dimensional entities there, and some higher ones that have basically been quarantined.
They used to do that to the realm. I mean, there's certain countries or islands where they used to put people that were they didn't want to contaminate the rest of society.
We've got people viewing from one of those islands right now. We have shitloads of people viewing from a beautiful country now that used to be a prison colony of Mother England.
Where they used to send the worst quote unquote criminals.
Yeah. Probably all the people that didn't agree with the parasite, just send them to a new island.
Well, I think it's a good kind of working analogy, isn't it? Like, it's a way to have some kind of direct realism. I always try and do that. So if I want to know the kind of mysteries of what's out there in terms of a cosmic level, just scale it down. And this is why the prison is such a good analogy. And also how to escape the prison.
Yeah, as above, so below. And you know what was one of the things that you talked about when you first joined this? It's like, you know, if you're trying to escape a prison, you don't go around telling everyone about it, and you don't do it with everyone else. You usually form a small group of talented people who are going to be instrumental in you breaking out of the prison. There's no one coming along with you that's not helping,
and they've got to be reliable, trustworthy.
Yeah, hey, and we have to also remember there's a very good chance that many people deserve to be in the prison, and not everyone deserves to escape. So there's a reason for there might be a reason this is a prison.
Yeah, but I just must add to this analogy of the prison, because people sort of will think, well, that means there's only a select few that can escape. Well, that could be the case. It could be at 5% of the world's population at a time, or at any given moment. At any one life cycle, it could just be 5%. But the other thing you have to factor in, what if those that escape, that are on the outside, can either feed back information and data to help others get out in 2s, 3s, 4, 5, 6, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, even better, they intentionally go back into the prison.
That's what I think has already happened. That's why I think we're all sat here, to be honest. You remember I've talked about, and I'll open him up here, I haven't talked about this part of it before. I talked about my oldest memory, which was the recurring memory of having to warn people about some big forthcoming event that's all through my childhood. The recurring dream that I've had for the last sort of 5 to 10 years is about being in a prison. But this, and I've put it down to me spending a lot of time in Southeast Asia because everyone's told about the prisons there. I've seen a couple of them. They're horrific. I haven't been in them, but I've seen them. And I always have the dream of sort of being in this Southeast Asian prison. But the prison has very loose walls. Like, it's easy to escape. And this is now my recurring dream. I can easily get out of this prison anytime I want. I can outwit the guards. I can escape. I can go back out. And I can even sneak back in without anyone finding that I've gone. And I try to tell everyone else how to get out of the prison. And I show them, look, it's fucking easy. Look. But they're all convinced that as soon as you get out and get caught, you get like another 50 years. And I keep sneaking back in to try and tell people. And this has been my new recurring dream that's been going on for ages. And before I started Rise Above and all this stuff, I was worried that like maybe I was going to have too much. And this dream was a forewarning that I was going to have too much fun in Southeast Asia one time and end up in prison. And I was really worried about this. Don't get me wrong, I like to have a lot of fun, especially when I go to Southeast Asia. And it's very easy to get to prison there. You don't have to do very much. And I was always thinking, is this a forewarning? I've got to be careful. But no, I don't think it is. I think it's a very powerful metaphor.
Yeah.
That the prison is very easy to escape. But many people are too scared about the implications of being caught.
Yeah, and there's also the other thing of some people actually like to be in prison. Some people will deliberately go to prison.
Some people actually crave it.
Yeah. And then you've got different types of prisons. You've got open prisons. I remember an old friend of mine, he went to an open prison for beating somebody up. And I remember the prison officer said to him, look, if you're going to escape, because there's no walls here, you can just walk out. If you're going to escape, do it around about 4 o'clock, because we finish our shift. Now, if you escape earlier, it means we've got to spend all day looking for you, and then we'll get home late. So if you're going to escape, do it around about 4 o'clock. That'll give you the maximum amount of time to get away. And the guard said that to him on his first day.
Why?
Good to know.
Cool guard.
Could have been a setup, but...
LFX is saying, give us the answer then, Double L. I mean, what do you want? What's the answer to getting out of the prison? I guess my answer would be that the prison itself is a construct. The prison itself is an egregore. It's like this. My friend in Sweden, who I went to stay with in 2020, when I started to make my expose videos about what's going on, and he taught me all about the Wim Hof breathing. And he'd actually spent time personally with Wim Hof in the snow. You know, he's from that part of the world. And he had spent some time in prison on a bogus charge, a couple of weeks. He's a very well together businessman, very super successful. And he said, do you know what? When I was in that prison cell, I actually felt freedom from all the stresses of his multi-million-pound business. He said, when I was in that prison cell, I was freer than anyone. He said, I can go anywhere. He was just using Wim Hof breathing. So he said, I wasn't locked away. They couldn't contain me in that prison cell. He said, they were just containing my meat suit. He said, it was pathetic. He said, I've never been so far when I had all that time to travel. He's talking about astral projecting that he was doing through Wim Hof breathing. And I've seen him do it. He was a monster. He could make himself completely get to the point of passing out, but hold it there and not pass out and leave his body.
That's mad.
Yeah, real powerful. So I thought about this. Yeah, the prison. You know, if it's true that this is a metaphysical farm or a loose harvesting trap, remember, we're living in a spectral frequency realm. That's only happening on one frequency. That's happening from non-physical entities outside of our meat suit realm. What, you think you can't beat that kind of shit with a mental fortress? I guarantee you can. I guarantee you
Just
can.
say no.
Literally, this is all consensual. Every level of, this is why, we try to get away from talking about this stuff every single week because, like I say, I don't want to explain the prison and expand on how it is constructed. The fact is that it's an egregore and it's constructed through our collective thought. And, I guess it's like going to AA. The first thing to admit is that you're living in a fucking loose farm, or this is constructed to drain our energy, whether it be negative or positive. I hope that makes sense in some way.
Yeah,
it's not too abstract.
No. And just to add to that, people often ask the question, why is this sort of knowledge of how to escape, why is it a secret, why, so on and so forth? Why is there good esoteric knowledge that's been occulted? Why is it hidden? Well, honestly, it's not. If you want it, you'll find it. You may find it in different ways, but if you really want it, you'll find it. And I guess that is the main part of it. You have to have the will. You have to have the motivation to find it. And until you can develop that amount of will and motivation to find it, I guess you have to keep recycling and suffering.
Well, listen, I mean, it's taken me over 20 years now of daily investigation and sort of dedication to trying to work out some of these things. And we're still here trying to work it out.
Yeah, sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, but I'm just saying the point is that this is the journey. The intent is wanting to get to the bottom of these questions. And it's through this learning that we seek this ascension that we're talking about. whether you want to put a name on it or a certain religion is really quite irrelevant. As long as you come to this deep understanding of the self, the power of the self, what we really are, what our relationship with the realm is, and what we're doing here, then there is no other goal. So I was trying. That was me getting serious.
No, mate, no, that's good.
Sorry, Master Lee, go on.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to. It's quite tricky because once you kind of open the door a little bit, you kind of have to.
Yeah, once you're this far in, it's
we've only got like 5 minutes left. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We've really primed the next midweek deep there, which we'll do in the next few weeks. But let's just sort of maybe bring it back down to earth for the last 5 minutes, because we've really gone round it tonight. Our first guest, she was dropping bombs. Then we had some negative feedback and a complaint from Mark. I think we in the end we got some common ground. We tried to answer a lot of questions. We left on much better terms than we started, which I think is a bonus.
I tell you, Mark's a warrior because he actually called in.
Yeah, that's what I said. He's the only one that's had the balls to do it.
And that's why, like I said, even though if we weren't agreeing on stuff and I felt like maybe getting a bit accusatory or whatever, I gave him the time and I wanted to properly explain everything that he was concerned about, because it's important. There's nothing here that's happening by an accident. This is everything you're seeing and hearing is a very conscious decision. And I believe in what we're doing here. So I'm always happy to explain it if people actually give that impetus and call us up. It's always better to talk.
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on soon? Rise Above. Next week on 11/11. Let's go. On 11/11, we're having the next Pirate Radio. We will probably, if Master Lee is around, we will have a deep chat at the end in the Power Hour. But the good news is Spitter and Manic are going to be joining us in the studio. You're going to be on the decks?
Yeah, mate.
Sweet. The week after that, let me get this straight. 18, Sheep Farm.
Nice.
Sheep Farm are coming on with a presentation about, guess who? Al Gore.
Interesting.
They've gone in on Al Gore himself. So we've got an Al Gore presentation and a collaboration with Sheep Farm.
I can't wait to see that thumbnail.
On the 18th. The week after that, we're going to have a break. Because like I said, we will have a few more breaks in the run-up to Christmas. So that's what's going on in the next couple of weeks of Rise Above. And there'll be a midweek. When are you next free on a Wednesday night, Master Lee? Any idea?
I would say in 2 weeks.
Okay. We'll aim to do a midweek deep in about 2 weeks' time. Are we going to talk about demonology?
Yeah, I'm still sorting out these Satanists.
Okay. All right.
I'm having these conversations and, just collating their side of the story. And it'd be very interesting. You'll be very surprised. In fact, I'll just give you a little clue. There are actually some Satanists that are against the New World Order. That are against the Satanists.
Because maybe it doesn't serve them.
Could be.
Well, if they're all about service to self, and the New World Order is not serving them, of course they're going to be against it.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so it's not all doom and gloom, because even those that are against us, they have enemies as well.
The enemy of thy enemy is thy friend.
What's your name? How are you? What are you doing here?
I'm
Amazing.
Fifi.
Yeah.
I'm from Swanage, just over the water over there.
Yep.
Met up with these guys a few years ago through Magix, who I'm friends with his mum, and they all came together through music, and then we had a meeting of minds.
Rules, regulation, improbable laws. Rules, regulation, no just cause. To bust an immovable object, become an unstoppable force.
Greasing code. Greasing code. Greasing code. Greasing codes inside the Leviathan. Inside the Leviathan. They make the rules, they make the rules, they make the rules, but we got the game plan. Greasing codes. Greasing codes. Greasing cords inside the Leviathan. Bear witness to this phenomenon. A clear sickness as it's coming on. That's their business. So I carry on beating my fist on the walls of Babylon. And it's vicious. If you're a vagabond in the British Isles, it ain't Avalon. The ambitious escape to the Amazon. Life is malicious, climbing the echelon. So we gotta break them chains, do personal best and make them gains. It's a hurtful mess, so abstain from eternal threats on a long campaign. Enough stress, but we don't complain, and I'm hopeful, so I won't refrain from a global test. Gotta maintain on a mobile flex with no disdain. Greasing cords, greasing cords. They make the rules, they make the rules, they make the rules, but we got the game plan. Greasing cords inside the Leviathan, inside the Leviathan. We're up against an immovable object. Greasing cords, greasing cords. They make the rules, they make the rules, they make the rules, but we got the game plan. Greasing cords, greasing cords. Up against an immovable object, placing bets on illusional odds set. Yo, it's cruel from the onset, killing you slow is the usual project. Still thriving despite the drawbacks. Ill writing, designing formats. This life gotta ride it raw back. The mind's climbing, not wiping the floor mat. Greasing cords inside the Leviathan, keeping watching the ice conspiring. Catch wind, sound up the siren. Due to the flames of the furnace is firing, not expiring, expanding. Inquiring to gain understanding. A fall from the top equals a crash landing. Don't get fooled by the devil's rebranding. Greasing cords, greasing cords. They make the rules, they make the rules, they make the rules, but we got the game plan. Greasing cords inside the Leviathan. We're up against, they make the rules, they make the rules. Greasing cords, greasing cords. They make the rules, greasing cords. They make the rules, they make the rules, but we got the game plan. Greasing cords inside the Leviathan. Greasing cords. They make the rules, they make the rules. Greasing cords. They make the rules, but we got the game plan. You ain't with it? Get out the way, man. Short-sighted, take off the Ray-Bans. Sourcing ethical goods, not name brands. No great plans, we execute. Blueprints get come with a fine tooth. The control system is not absolute. Revealing the truth is the way to recruit the youth. Collating a man to the proof while they're stacking a man to the lies. Cracking the code is eternity striving. Like drinking the fountain of life. Like a rhythm that I'm already riding. Aiming to bring down the house in tonight. The mic's hidden with imminent rising. When I draw this run, big alive. Greasing cords. Greasing cords, greasing cords, greasing cords inside the Leviathan. Greasing cords, greasing cords, greasing cords inside the Leviathan. The Leviathan. Greasing cords. They make the rules, but we got the game plan. Greasing cords, greasing cords inside the Leviathan. They make the rules, but we got the game plan. Greasing cords, greasing cords.
Archaics. Tonight we meet Archaics, Jason Breshears. I don't need to give this guy any introduction. I'm sure you've already been watching his amazing output on YouTube and, you know, with the Facebook groups and everything. I think it's time to get him on the show. Can we say hello? And I hope we've got a good sound here. Jason, welcome.
How you doing? How's my audio?
Great. Can you hear us all right, mate?
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, you sound crystal clear, mate. This is brilliant, mate. It's amazing to have you on the show, and also amazing to see you wearing our t-shirts. That's absolutely stellar. Love that.
Well, you know, that was entirely accidental. I told you guys in the past, I piddle around in my downtime in my wood shop, and I listen to YouTube channels. I just surf around. You guys popped up, and I listened to you. I was like, wow, man, what a nice studio. You know, I'm all about bylines. I have little mantras like break free or die trying. I have like 7 or 8 of them that are real popular. You know, our world is not what you think. I heard you guys rise above, and I said, man, let me check this out. So I Googled rise above, and I pulled up some t-shirts, and I bought one, and I showed it to you guys. Evidently, it wasn't your T-shirts though that I
Yeah,
bought.
unfortunately, Jason, you did buy a counterfeit first of all, but hey, it was still a nice T-shirt, so we can't complain.
Look. I mean, I got y'all's package today.
Oh right, you got the other one. Excellent. So so you purchased that one yourself, and I sent a little supply pack through.
Yeah, I bought the white one. You guys sent this one, and then you guys sent this one. This would probably be my favorite T-shirt yet. I will be wearing this on my live this afternoon. Awesome. I have never seen a T-shirt like this, but let me tell you something. When it comes to the rabbit hole, this is me right here.
I actually drew that myself, Jason. That is one of our mottos. We embrace the rabbit here at Rise Above. I'm a digital artist, mate. I drew that on my tablet.
Okay, that's Full Metal Rabbit. That's me. I like that.
The Full Metal Rabbit, indeed.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I think you get why we talk about the rabbit so much. Whole idea here is, you can go to the bottom of the rabbit hole, but down there the view isn't very good. You can't see much. It's much better to get one whole rabbit, take it back up to the surface, put it on the table, and dissect it and see what it's all about. And that's why I've got you here tonight. First of all, I need to pay homage, Jason, because I think, I've been looking into things for a very long time. The Sumerian tablets, the nature of our reality. I've been at this for over 20 years. And I had a lot of questions about timelines and how things fitted together. And then you came along. And I think, if you don't mind me saying, I think there is a couple of things that you've done spectacularly. One is to put together a workable model for the resets that everyone has been talking about in the last few years. This phenomena of resetting history.
Yeah, because the timeline is so questionable.
Yeah, but what you've also done, and I think probably your piece de resistance, Jason, is what you've actually done with Sitchin's work. Because anyone that got into the Sumerian tablets, when this all, when you learn about this stuff, we learn about Zechariah Sitchin first of all. And right. I could never get my head around this 450,000 years, and the massive gap. Yeah, and I think for anyone that doesn't know, maybe you could just give us a little, sort of summary of what you've done with Sitchin's work to start us off.
Well, to start off with, is the man has passed away, and I'm not going to denigrate him. As a matter of fact, he's never been my enemy. My problem was that he and I have read the same source materials, the same translations from German and French, the original archaeologists that were translating the Sumerian since the days of Smith and E. Palmer Smith, and the pioneers like Samuel Noah Kramer, and those who came later who were translating Sumerian like Marine Gallery Kovacs. Listen, all the sensationalism that Sitchin introduced isn't in the original translations. And we have those in Asiatic researchers. We have all these. It does have the hyperinflated numbers, but they're explained in other ancient records that those were day count systems. And Sitchin totally ignored that. And that's my problem. You can't ignore something when we admit that the entire historical record can fit in 5,500 years. And when I say historical record, I'm not saying history began then. I'm saying humans began recording events on media that we can verify, such as stelae and prisms and date steels and stone clay tablets on monuments, temple walls. The historical record began with monumental preservations of knowledge, which later became portable tablets. Tablets later became scrolls. Scrolls later became books. So the historical record going back 55 centuries it all fits within the whole entire Sumerian Anunnaki Anuna model. If we just take Sitchin's material and don't change any of it, you can keep all of Sitchin's material intact and just retranslate all those hundreds of thousands of years that Enlil did something or Ninhursag did something, and all you do is divide every single number you come in contact with by 360, because the Sumerians were a day count system. That's why all the ancient calendars like the Quiche, the Olmec, the Vedic, and the Maya were day count systems. Additionally, there were lunar systems. The sun calendars came so much later. So when we take all these records into their proper context, only through the lens they were intended to be from, that's how we get an accurate analysis of the Mayan long count ending in 2046, not 2012. But this is how we can find value. I encourage people to read Zechariah Sitchin's Earth Chronicles because they're going to educate you. All I want you to do is take into consideration, if you want to understand how to fit all that in the historical context within a 6,000 year period, just review the archaic chronological material while you're reading Sitchin's work. And then you've got both bases covered.
And I think it's also very interesting because what you've done is not only have you married up the Sumerian timelines effectively with like Egyptian kings list, you know, Christian creationists say that the earth is only 6,000 years old because, as you've put it, Genesis was, or the reset that happened then was so huge and tumultuous. It was like a new earth and a new heaven. So that was Genesis, which is roughly 5,500 to 6,000 years ago, right?
Exactly. The Christians aren't wrong in the timing. They're wrong in the concept. That destruction essentially was a reboot. The entire world started over from scratch. Every infrastructure, every piece of writing, everything that has ever been discovered or invented, people were knocked back to the Neolithic. They were living in caves, in caverns, and they had nothing better to do for a few hundred years before they started developing again, but do these elaborate, very aesthetic, beautiful cave paintings all over the world that we call Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon. But these were not done by a primitive people. They even used the contours and the geometry that was found on natural rock outcrops to make their paintings 3D. This was not a primitive people. This was a sophisticated people who had lost everything.
And you're proposing that they'd actually lost everything because they had survived a cataclysm, right?
Yes. The ones that painted on the caves, yeah, I'm really believing about 95% of humanity was wiped out. It wasn't just humans. 95% of all the animal forms, giant reptiles, giant marsupials, giant mammalians. We only have one area of the world where marsupials are concentrated in great numbers in many genera, and you already know that's Australia. You know, some of it's Madagascar, but it's the same part of the world. And New Zealand, a lot of those island chains out there in Micronesia, these marsupials live in the same environment as the wingless birds. And the wingless birds were gigantic. They're like emus, but the emus weren't as big as some of the other wingless birds that were alive up until the last few thousand years. So this whole area of the world seems to have gotten a pass. And what I mean is the destruction that wiped out everything else, such as I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the 2.5 to 3.5 million frozen woolly rhinoceroses and three-toed sloths and mammoths that have been found all over Siberia, Alaska, all in the frozen tundras. They've been excavating those since the 1840s, 50s.
And they're all like concentrated 60s, together, aren't they?
And there's a lot. Yes, they're concentrated as if they were asphyxiated. Almost the air was sucked out, oxygen was sucked out of the air. They died with tulips and undigested buttercups still on their tongues. And they didn't just fall down and die. They were very quickly frozen solid where they stood. So yeah, whole apple trees have been found frozen in permafrost, solid, bigger specimens than we have today. But yeah, that whole period, that's exactly what it was. We have a whole revision of history that needs to be done to put all these things that anthropology, archaeology, and science is trying to tell us, because they have pieces of the whole, but because science has always been highly compartmentalized so it can be controlled, that the individuals in their special fields never get to know or see the information that's in other fields. A geologist today can't possibly keep up with all the new peer-reviewed papers and studies that are coming out in geology, much less take the time to see what's new in anthropology, what's new in paleobotany. They don't have the time to do that. But there are maverick researchers like myself and others who take the best from all these fields and put these pictures together for you and show you how it all fits together.
And this is the art of syncretism, really, isn't it? It's cross-genre, cross-discipline, amalgamation, you know, and putting together this picture. And this is why, and I'm going to show you a meme here. If you've watched our show before, Jason, you know that we've got a team of people behind us that would make the memes and all of our graphics and everything. This is one that's been knocked up. You've often been described, by myself included, as the final boss at the bottom of the rabbit hole. And for anyone who hasn't seen this one, if you can see this on the screen, Jason, here's me and Andy as Mario and Luigi, and you was Bowser or King Koopa. Now, I've been, like I say, researching for 20 years. Now, I noticed that in 2018, and this is very surreal, I went away to Asia and left my partner here. I went 2 weeks ahead of her. I left her in the house with YouTube. And when she got to Asia, this was November in 2018, and met me in Thailand, she said, have you heard about this reset and this mud flood in 1850? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And she showed me all of this information that had basically come out in the space of about 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, that simply wasn't there before. And, you know, and now everyone was talking about Tartaria and resets and something that happened around 1850. And I knew instantly that there's probably a lot of misinterpretation. You know, people are saying, oh, that everything was Tartaria before this. But then you came along, and what you've actually done is, for me, is provided a workable structure to, for one, how these resets could be happening, why and how. Now, you've put the date of 1902 as the last time that this Phoenix event happened. Is this correct?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely.
And the Phoenix event is on a cycle of 138 years within different multiples of this. And we're not saying that everything gets wiped out every 138 years, but every 138 years or multiples, this event happens and something appears in the sky.
Right. Okay. Well, let me clarify better, because the Phoenix phenomenon has really promoted a lot of confusion with people who haven't just delved deep. And it's a lot. I mean, I got over 60 videos on it. So I understand that it's hard to process, but we have all kinds of cycles and epicycles that bring earthquakes and even liquefaction, mud floods, tsunamis that are highly regional, and they never really affect more than a continent. Now, these happen in every century. Disasters have happened in the last 25 years. We just had a tsunami in Japan, 2014? Look, this is not what the Phoenix phenomenon is. These are random events that are happening in every century, and they go back thousands of years, and they're very localized. But then we have this pattern, and it's not just cataclysms. It is almost as if there is a force, something that acts with intelligent design, that is observing us, and it acts with discretion. It knows when it needs to do what it needs to do, when it needs to do it, but it only has that opportunity every 138 years. And when it does these edits in total rewrites, it is so paradigm shifting at the time, but it conceals the editing. It conceals the reset so cleverly in the disguise of earthquakes, sun darkening, strange red dust and mud, and it disguises it in all these physical things, which ends up being the collapse of infrastructures or the birth of infrastructures. What's up?
No, sorry, my camera was out of focus. If you see me do that, I'm just refocusing the camera, Jason. That's all.
Oh, okay. All right. So, yeah, you guys are real clear to me. Right now, you are.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, it just went a bit fuzzy. So don't mind me if I put my hand up. I'm not asking a question. I was just making the camera refocus. Sorry.
Okay. Well, this 138 year, from a materialist perspective, I understand why people are triggered and why they don't get it. They think it's a cataclysm, just something that's automatic happen, but it's even more sophisticated than that. It is something that wants us to believe it's an intruder planet, but it's actually local. It stays hidden in our sky. It's cloaked. I don't know how. I'm not even going to try and guess what object in the sky might be trying to hide it. How it stays cloaked, I don't know, but it's always here. It's observing, but it only powers up and does what it can do every 138 years. And what it's doing is editing reality. It is absolutely collapsing timelines. It does not want to continue, while taking materials like people and phenomena that's in those reality tunnels and putting them in the reality tunnels that it wants to continue. This is why we have anomalous artifacts and strange stories that don't make sense. And we know we have these introductions into our reality like Mandela effect that don't make sense to us in synchronicities and coincidence and deja vu. And we have populations of people that for 2 or 3 years act like they're robots, act stupid. It's like they've been disconnected and they slowly come back together. That's why we have these explosions of periods of time where it seems like there's 200 children for every human adult. And then after 20 or 30 years, we have these great wars where all these children who are now adults are all dying off. We have the strangest things. All kinds of new things are introduced into our world during these 138-year periods. Changes in our infrastructure, changes in our culture, our philosophy, changes in written text. New translations to older texts are always introduced at these periods of time. Old libraries are destroyed, new libraries appear. Infrastructures are bolstered, others their energy and finances are taken away. It is bizarre. The amount of information that has come from the general public to me since I released my videos on 1902 is overwhelming. I'm overwhelmed by all the local stuff people have sent me on microfiche. It's most of what happened in 1902 has been edited out in the collective. It's been edited out of prestigious collegiate material, but it hasn't been edited out on the local level. And people are going through the microfiche in their libraries and sending me material showing me what happened in 1902 and 1903 in their little area, and they're coming on board fast. They're like, damn, this doesn't even make sense for all these things in the world to appear at the exact same time unless they were edited in. People like Charles Fort, who 25 years later started researching that, was so bewildered by everything that happened in 1902 that he published an entire book of the Damned, and included a tremendous amount of material that he found about 1902, and then just summed it up as saying that weird new dark age, the year 1902. Charles Fort said that with another book later on.
So when I was learning about this reset stuff in 2018, the year of 1850 kept popping up, and it was like you say, you would see the earliest photos of these huge populations of people that look like they've all been given the same clothes off the production line. They're all at the beach,
wandering around,
nobody knows
not really doing anything.
They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like they don't even know how to. Like, what, have you never been to the beach before? They're like sat there in a suit, getting covered in sand. What, you don't know how to use a towel?
Yeah.
And it was like John Levi calls them inheritors.
Yeah, that's right.
So, if you all say what do you think about this mud flood then? Is that
okay?
Is that bullshit?
I can address that as well. Okay. First of all, that wasn't Phoenix phenomenon on the Phoenix timeline, but I don't believe it was 1850. I believe it was 1849. And let me explain.
Okay.
Let me explain. Okay. We have I have documented many on my channel and in my published books. I call them cross-cylindrical parallels. It is when an event occurs in a certain year on one calendar, which is a timekeeping system that was invented in retrospect. We don't know where calendars come from. No calendars today started the day or the year of their inception. This is a mystery. Calendars are always implemented long after the events that they use for starting points. So, just like the Anno Domini calendar that we're under today, AD calendar today didn't start until 526 years after its supposed year one. And this is admitted by the Roman Catholic Church. It's a calendar that was designed in retrospect. But its design was genius, but I don't believe it was influenced by the Romans. In the AD calendar of 1849, we have some mysterious events across America, like many people have documented. But they were edited out after that, in the events of 1902 continued that censoring process to remove these materials from many of the text. Although we find the evidence still everywhere. People are still finding enough information to know something happened. But in 1849, on another calendar, the BC calendar, going the opposite direction. Remember, the Anno Domini calendar is a palindrome, because it goes AD in Anno Domini years forward. It also goes in BC days backwards. It's an operable palindrome. It's an operable palindrome, and it covers our entire history. It covers every year of recorded history, because BC can go back as far as you need it to do. AD goes all the way to 2022, where we're at today. 1849 mud floods and all kinds of weird stuff parallels the 1849 event in the Middle East that was later completely censored. And what I'm describing, Zecharia Sitchin covered it pretty good, but it's called the Lamentation texts. In the year 1849 of the Old World, in that year, something from the sky appeared and obliterated the Harappan civilization of Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa, the Indus Valley. Russian scientists at Mohenjo-Daro actually excavated the site, and right below the dust and topsoil, they found the original skeletons, human skeletons holding hands, parents holding hands with their children. They were basically flash frozen dead right there on the spot, all of them looking at the sky. And the Russians even measured the area and said that it was 50 times more radioactive than ordinary, than what they would expect to find in an archaeological site. So this is anomalous. These pictures, actual photos of this can be seen in black and white Russian photos of these human skeletons at Mohenjo-Daro can be seen in David Hatcher Childress's Lost Cities books. You could probably Google them as well, the skeletons of Mohenjo-Daro. So this destruction is found in the Lamentation text because it never stopped. It started in the east and destroyed the Elamite cities in Mohenjo-Daro, Larak, Umbel, the whole Harappan Valley, but it kept coming and it left Babylon and Assyria alone because they're in the north.
And was this described in the Bible?
Yes, it passed over straight over the Tigris Euphrates and completely obliterated the Sumerian cities in 1849 BC. It kept going over the Arabian desert, and it's the reason why we have so many tektites out there. Actual sand that was under such extreme pressure and heat that it turned into tektites, like crystal glass. Well, going and it destroyed the cities of the plain. You know the story of as Sodom and Gomorrah destroying them.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. Yeah.
Well, it stopped. The destruction stopped right there. But it's a giant line on the earth where all this was destroyed. This was the year 1849, and what's really interesting is that within 100 years, not a trace of it in the literature of the ancient world, and that's saying something, because we have hundreds of thousands of cuneiform tablets from Ugarit and Rashamra, from Amarna, from the Hattusis, Mari, the Mitanni kingdom, all the Nineveh material in Babylon, Nippur. We have all these underground libraries that have been found, but it's almost as if the event had been edited out. And it's a perfect cross-cylindrical parallel for what happened in our time period of 1849.
Now, what you've just said there has led really nicely into something that I've prepared, which I wanted to ask you about. Now, so in the Bible, when Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, that would have obviously, you saw that camera, it would have obviously been described that God was doing that, right? Because they were sinning and they were sodomites, yeah? Now,
okay.
The name
I agree,
of God.
I agree.
Yeah, so God in the Bible, in the Old Testament, is Yahweh, right? That's the name of God in the Bible. Yeah. I think we can all agree that. Now, yeah. I've been looking into the Gnostic text for a while, and I see that you obviously talk about these as well, Jason, because there is I think a synergy with what you're talking about in this ancient artificial intelligence X. Okay, so I did a little bit of I've just fished some stuff out. So this is the word Yahweh, or the tetragrammaton in Hebrew. So wait, this is called a tetragrammaton. It sounds like a fucking transformer.
Yeah,
like literally a trans. You know what I'm saying? It's part of the Decepticons or something. Now, we can see here that this symbol looks like sevens, okay? Now, even in Christianity and Judeo-Christianity, the number of God is 777, right?
That's right.
Now, here's where it gets weird, Jason. I don't know if you can see the top right. Someone has... I haven't worked this formula out. This is something I've just taken a screenshot of. But it looks like they've worked out the formula of Yahweh, this 777, and it works out to 137.34 recurring, almost like pi. That's very close to 138, Jason.
Actually, it would be considered 138 because it's the fine structure concept. Yes.
So if in case anyone doesn't know, Jason, basically his piece de resistance is this 138-year cycle of the return of the Phoenix, right? Now, stick with me here. If someone is basically saying that if you complete the formula or the equation that is Yahweh, you get 138. Now, the Gnostics say that the God of the Bible is the demiurge and has created a fake construct. Sophia, the mother goddess, had a bastard son, Yaldabaoth, or whatever it's called, and which became the demiurge. Now, ancient artificial intelligence X is the way you put this, Jason, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, this to me looks like a mathematical equation. It is a mathematical equation, right? So, is Yahweh the demiurge? Is artificial intelligence X? Is this a fair assumption? Am I along the right lines here?
Well, yes, I have videos where I make the connection myself, but I didn't know this. What you're telling me now is novel. I've never seen.
Oh, boom! Yes, I just rabbit hole Jason Breshears. What do you know about that? Gosh, button.
Yeah,
gosh.
But I have in my videos directly called Yahweh. He is just another expression. He's the Hebrew form of the demiurge. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. I just never saw this. I never saw his name written out because I already knew that the Hebrew was it has a geometrical value. All Hebrew and Aramaic and Greek does. Yeah, it's good. That's a good little association you got there.
I'm really glad that I brought that to the table, mate. I'm really glad. I thought you would like that. And I mean, here is the same equation shown in like a stained glass window. Now we're all very familiar with this symbol on the right, which is the Solomon star, the Star of David. Blah, blah, blah.
Careful now.
Now, this for me is actually like a diagram of our realm. For me, this is a diagram of AIX. It's the construct that we're in. Is this? Am I thinking along the right lines here, Jason? Is this where? Do you think that's a fair assumption? Is this like this drawing of these two triangles?
I think the entire alchemical movement. What you're showing is like illustrations from popular alchemy and the Hermetic text, which had a lot of Jewish symbolism in them. That whole period of time when they were putting these treatises together, and later it morphed into magical treatises like Henry Cornelius Agrippa and Francis Barrett. Listen. This was the best way during that period that humans could approximate something that they had not yet understood, such as computers, such as simulated constructs. They were on point and understood that this was like a giant clock they were living in. They just didn't have the frames of reference we do today to really give solid expressions. So these are really great. This is what they were working with what they had at the time, which was text, gematria, geometry, and this is why we see all these forms expressed in the same ways. But I do believe that in the Hermetic material, which was largely developed out of the Gnosis and the Orphic material of the Greeks, yes, this was their principal belief in the mysteries, that we lived in an artificial construct. It was a stage play, and that we were all playing our parts.
Wow. So
it's just so much information.
Literally, it's crazy, Jason, because I've been absolutely like gorging on your videos for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and now I'm sort of here speaking to you. I have to keep remembering that I'm not just watching one of your videos, just going, wow. Sorry. Right, so the next point I want to bring over is the synergy between that symbol and another really controversial symbol, okay? Now, because everyone knows that the swastika is one of the most ancient symbols on Earth, and it's been used by every single, culture going back to as soon as they had symbols. But not many people realised that this Solomon star symbol is also the same. And these two symbols often actually appear together, which is a crazy dichotomy for people that study 20th century history.
Well, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And it seems that these also may represent a torus field in some way. And at least the swastika does, certainly. And potentially, and I'm going to bring up another researcher here, which you may or may not be aware of, a content creator. He's aware of you and he watches your stuff. He has seen it. His name's Godvlamast, or Godvaj, as we call him.
We call him Godvaj on the show.
Are you aware of this guy?
Listen, I have conferred with several people in emails that have been turning me on to his work. I'm not a critic. I did watch 2 and a half videos of his, and I like the material. It's just that I've been bogged down trying to organize I'm learning how to delegate. More and more people are coming into the Archaics fold, and I'm learning how to delegate instead of doing everything on my own. I haven't really had a chance to do a lot of learning from other platforms, seeing what they have and seeing how our informations will coalesce. So, but he is somebody I intend to look into, because too many people who I value their opinions have contacted me about him.
I fully recommend it. What I've been doing is basically watching your stuff with his stuff back to back, and for me, you are providing a much longer chronological time frame, and this guy is putting the color and the visuals to a lot of the concepts. He talks about an energy construct that we live in,
counter-rotating pyramids,
with counter-rotational Solomon star system, and talks about energy harvesting, and there's a lot of synergy with what you're talking about. Now, he actually believes that this is being emanated from a piece of technology called the Ben stone. Now, I've looked into your Anuna files, Jason. I've got to say, it's some of my favourite work that you've done. And you talk about where the Anuna, and for anyone who doesn't know, that's what the Anunnaki, or the early sort of master race of these super advanced humans that have survived many resets. You talked about the abandonment period where they come and they go, usually either side of a reset. Now,
right.
It's quite clear that they haven't been on the Earth for a couple of thousand years, because we've been left to our own devices. Could it be that what we're describing as AIX has been left behind to do their work of keeping us in check while the physical Anuna are not here? Could it be that a piece of technology has been left behind to alter our realm? Does this make sense to you?
I'm on board with that. The particulars, I can't really say yes or no to the particulars, but I am on board with the fact that there is technology in the sky that is cloaked and it is hidden. And I'm even open to the possibility that the very race that designed that technology is no longer existing, yet their technology was so good it still continues to do its protocols. I'm on board with that. And I'm also on board with the fact that the Phoenix weapon initially was retarding human development and doing all kinds of terrible things. It was feared in ancient times, and that's why there are so many traditions that I've been able to uncover about the original beliefs about the Phoenix. However, I believe it was hijacked. I believe that technology was reprogrammed and it's doing something else. There is other programming piggybacked onto that signal every 138 years. It's no longer just wasting away humanity and destroying everything. And I have linked that to the largest piece of technology in the entire world, which is the Great Pyramid, which is measured out perfectly in 138 units. And I've showed this I have a whole playlist about it. But that the traditions attached to that monument, the pyramid, the traditions attached to the person who reprogrammed it, it's very clear to me, because it came very late in history. The Phoenix destructions were already happening way before the Great Pyramid was built. So whoever built this monument had a purpose, and that's why I tie the Great Pyramid in with all the eschatology about he's coming to set the captives free. Somebody has already realized that this piece of technology that's wasting humanity over and over, it needs to be deactivated, but there's only a certain window of time to do that. I have a lot of theories around this, but from the very beginning, Sam, I have been very open since my very first video. I have asserted that greater minds than I will one day come forward and be able to put all this together. All I'm doing is bringing about an awareness and showing people there's definitive science to this stuff, but I will admit that I'm probably not qualified alone to figure it all out.
No, I think that's fair. At the end of the day, Jason, you've done a lot of work, and I think you're very open when you say something is your theory and something that is backed up by, the chronological work that you've done with the source material. Now, before I ask you more about the Great Pyramid and Enki and what happened there, I want to go back to what I was saying a minute ago. Now, this Godvaj guy, he thinks that we live in a crater with an energy field over us, which is creating a firmament by this Ben stone. Now, I know it's a bit of a cliche to talk about the Matrix film, but I personally think that the Matrix film is an important piece of source material. Now, just hold this thought a minute. If we are in a containment field, almost like a Petri dish with a human experiment going on, and there's this Phoenix event, this piece of technology that can come back and either wipe out, do a reset, spray the petri dish with fire, start again. Now, do you know what made me think? It made me think of. Let me just show you this scene from The Matrix.
Okay.
Now, this is Neo in his pod. Now, imagine that it's not a pod with a single person in it. That pod is our holosphere with the dome over the top. Now, this machine that's coming back, this reminds me of a piece of technology like the Phoenix. You've talked about these hidden sky machines that appear every couple of 100 years, and they're shown throughout history. This could be something. I mean, you also talked. Yeah, you can see what I'm saying. I mean, it's making the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. It's like you said that the Sky Sim could be hiding something so scary that if we were to observe what is actually there, it would be terrifying.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll just show you some of these pictures here.
This what you're showing right here to me is a very materialist interpretation of what's happening, like as if humans are actually being in pods, and I'm not on board with that theory. I like the philosophy and I like the concepts of the Matrix movies, but the actual idea that Sam Carno is sitting in a pod somewhere and all this is mental, I don't believe that at all, man. This is and the reason I don't.
But Jason, by the way, I'm not Sam Carno. Sam Carno is an off-screen member of the team. I'm Lance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I know Sam's been messaging you. It's okay.
Yeah,
you called me Sam a couple of times. Not to worry. I
lose track of who I'm in contact with.
You're a busy guy, mate.
So that's a materialist perspective, and I can't really embrace that anymore, because the more I immerse myself into modern physics research, because I'm never going to ignore it. It says they might not have the right direction, but they're still making very valuable discoveries. And the more our physicists play with matter, the more they really just run all these experiments, the more we find that our physicality isn't physical at all. It's like the mathematical exercise I've been showing everybody about 2178. Our arithmetic looks real. While we're looking at it from one perspective, we can do all kinds of calculations. We can add, subtract, multiply, divide, employ trigonometry and expressions. But there's a simple method we can use that will show that our arithmetic really isn't shit. It's going to collapse to zero and show that there's really nothing of substance there. But that's a good chart. What is of substance actually channels us toward a portal. And that portal is three numbers that loop around the number 2178. And all three of those numbers are also divisible by 2178. And they never collapse to zero. What this tells me is that the arithmetic that governs our reality that we're immersed in right now directly leads us to another reality for which we can't get through that little portal right now for whatever reason. But I believe there's a time coming when we can. I believe there's a definitive year in the future when we're going to reach that portal, and that portal is no longer going to be a portal. It's going to be a conduit. And that's when everything's going to change.
So do you reckon that'll be high?
Gosh.
So do you think that'll be...
Turn your mic up, Andy.
Do you think that'll be year 2178? Because I was watching your playlist last night, funny enough, and about this particular number you were talking about the divisible numbers, 9 and 0, particularly. Everything can reduce down to, I think you were saying 9 and 0, isn't it? And I was trying to think about the future, about when that would be, and I thought, well, the obvious number is 2178, isn't it?
Well, 2178 it's interesting that we even talked about this, because I just did a whole show. It was pre-recorded with Sol Luckman, and this is the subject matter. I go into depth. I revealed things in that video about research I've conducted that I have never even released on my own channel. I'm going to release it through him, and we're going to premiere it tomorrow on my channel. But I answer that question directly, and I show the demonstrations that 2178 is the reboot of the simulacrum. It's not when it's going to stop, because this is a program. It's going to reboot and send everybody back who's still inside the containment field who didn't make the cut. They're going to start over. It's going to be Genesis 1 all over again. It's going to be the first people. They're going to be told to be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. It's going to be after a great, vast destruction. And this is played out over and over and over and over. And
maybe this is what the mass culling is about at the moment across globally.
2178 is just the reboot of this construct. I personally believe, and I'm showing this in coming research, that the Exodus event, when those who are prepared to receive better upgraded avatars by their personal conduct, when the oversoul has determined, hey man, you know what? That dude Jason's done. He's done there. He's done what he's supposed to do. It's time to move him on. It makes the cut. That's the year 2070. 2070 is divisible by 138. So is 2178. 2178 is 138 years after the Phoenix phenomenon, coming in 2040, which is 18 years from now. So all this type of stuff I had no intention of releasing until my Chronicon team was totally done with that project, because we're going to basically, I'm doing something that I'm probably never done before. But I have a Chronicon team, and they've already typed up and digitized all my research. Now we're adding all the new stuff that I've discovered in the past about decade since the project was finished. But what we're doing is we're actually mapping out, using Nostradamus's work, Mother Shipton's work, cross-cylindrical parallels, isometric projections, the history of the world, and the eschatology from all different ancient sources. And we're mapping out every single year of what you can expect in 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, all the way up to this Exodus event in 2070. And then what's going to happen in that period of time from 2070 to 2106. And then system reboot. Everybody who has not done what they're supposed to do, who hasn't accomplished what they're here to accomplish, they're not going to get sent to hell and eternal hellfire and all that religiosity crap. No, none of that's going to happen. Their souls are going to be rebooted right back into the system, and they're going to be given another shot. And
that's year zero.
Yeah, it's year zero. It starts all over again. I mean, on my channel, there's no other way to interpret some of the data that I bring to the table. We are absolutely enchained inside calendars. Calendars aren't timekeeping systems. Calendars are protocols that govern our existence. That's why I'm always telling people, these calendars that we research and we see in all these books, they're not what you think they are. These are pieces of programming. They're very operable in our lives, and every single one of them was created in retrospect. That should tell you something. That means they were invented by the AI system to do whatever it needed to do to guide the human race wherever it needed to guide the human race.
Like a social set of rules. For example, the Bible's a very good way to live your life in
order to hide whatever happened on the previous reset. Because this is a program that resets like at every 6,000 years. But in that 6,000 years, the AI system is not able to sit there and control everything and every variable. So in order to power down, and in order to, because it's still subject to the laws of diminishing returns, it's also subject to the law of conservation of energy. It can't just forever expend energy. Even the Phoenix can only power up every 138 years. So what it has to do is it has to initiate resets and edits in order to conceal things that have happened in the past when it made mistakes. Because the AI has made mistakes in the past. But it always tries to hide them.
I mean, well, so if we're a part of that system, though, surely we are still part of that AI. So the AI is constantly exuding energy on us. So myself and my consciousness, and yourself and your consciousness, and so on around the globe. Because
I would love to address that real quick before you continue.
Yeah, go on, carry on, please.
Before you continue, okay. One of the principal tenets of my teachings is that you live in two different realities at the same time, and that because you're an immortal being, you are able to jump realities. If you're living in the collective, then yes, you're basically what other people have been educating me. They've been telling me it's called loosh or whatever. But if you're living in the collective, yes, the collective feeds the AI. But you don't have to do that. You can also be a highly individualized, personalized entity and make decisions on your own. And then the simulacrum is going to have to edit new reality tunnels for you because you're not obeying the protocol. This is why I call those people errants.
Right, that's what I was going to say. This is what an errant is,
I'm actually
right?
glad you talked about it because this is exactly where I was going to go with the errant situation. Because
yes, this is why I call people errants, because errants are a risk. The AI can't control everything, and it doesn't have the energy. It doesn't have the energy to do it. So it creates culture. It creates politics. It creates all these niches where people will borrow into those paradigms, and as long as they're moving as a school of fish, it's very easy to guide them with little power. Now, because this is a holographic construct, and it requires energy to keep those patterns going. But the errant is somebody that goes their own way, the free thinker. They're not doing that. So AIX is not going to fight the simulacrum. They're totally independent systems. The simulacrum itself is a neutral field. It's a builder protocol. AIX wants to blind you from it by putting you into a niche. If you refuse to be put into that niche, then you're an errant, which means you're a problem. You're not going against the protocols. So it leaves you alone after a period of time of where it introduces all kinds of chaos into your life, trying to get you back. But even that takes too much energy when too many people are free thinking. So it's better to just cut it off.
This is literally what the Bible would describe as Satan.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, AIX is Satan. You could call it Satan, the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth. It's the same thing. This is just frames of reference. AIX will leave you alone as soon as it realizes you're becoming too much of a problem, costing too much.
Me and Lance were talking about this a few years ago about conformers and non-conformers, and I think that throughout life there's lots of tests that the AIX is presenting to us about conformity, and then that can categorize you. You know, are you a conformer? Are you a threat? You know, and I think subcultures are very easy ways of seeing that. You know, if you're turning the line, you're watching your daily TV shows, you're following the news, you're repeating everything like a sheep. Then I think that it will leave you alone because it knows you're easy to manipulate. And the easy way of identifying people is by throwing things out there, like the BLM movements and stuff like that. 'Cause you'll see who's on the streets, who's not on the streets, who's arguing with those people. You know, and there is a slight danger in that, you know, because you become identified as someone who is a danger to the system.
I think AIX provides catalysts for us, and what we do with it is our choice. You know, there's the very very famous saying, you know, if you try and fight the devil, it's just going to kill you. If you ignore the devil, he'll consume you. But if you use the catalyst that's provided for personal progression, then you can dance with the devil and you can come off better. You know, something like that. I think I'll probably jazz that up a little bit.
You can lead the devil in the dance.
Great comment, yeah.
Listen, it's never. Well, listen, we can't take this information and automatically assume by having an intellectual realization of the difference between an errant and somebody who is a slave in the collective. That's not enough, because I know many people who understand my theory. They're still having problems in life. The real issue is remember, I've told you guys many times, the difference in the archaics premise and the whole movement on what is it? The law of attraction deal is we are an informed. You're as a soul, you are an informed field, which means you have an energy field that is you, and it contains every piece of information and data that you ever come in contact with, everything that you've ever accepted as true. You already have the power with you to go in any direction that you want to. The problem is that most people develop the intellectual understanding of these complex concepts, and then they don't act on them. Because the simulacrum only responds to the physical movement of the avatar in order to knit programming for you. So if you can daydream, you can fantasize, you can do all that all you want, and that's all you'll ever receive for the rest of your life is more conditions that allow you more time to fantasize and to daydream. But the person who builds a picture in their head and decides, you know what, I'm through with this, man. I'm done with this politics. I'm done with this religious bullshit. I'm finished with it. And you do that with that emotional output there, and you actually move in the direction with your physical body of going to do something that's going to set you apart from the collective instantly. I'm talking about it's instantly. As you're doing it, it will begin knitting circumstances for you that will comport with your new blueprint that you put in your mind. This blueprint in your mind is what AIX is always trying to figure out, because the simulacrum can read your mind. and then it will follow through when you start acting. But AIX cannot read your mind. This is how the Great Pyramid was built. It was built as a work of deception to fool AIX. AIX cannot read the human mind, but it can read your cortisol levels. It can basically know the architecture of your personality by everything you've ever done in your life. So it can guesstimate pretty much what you're going to do when you're given certain variables. But if you truly start free thinking and decide you want to move in a different direction in your life, and you actually start doing it, you will find within hours that whole new reality tunnels are going to be laid out before you, new choices. This is why, if you, like you and your girlfriend have a huge fight. For 3 years, you and your girlfriend have been watching movies, going out to eat, and you live a static life. But as soon as you two have a fight and you leave the house and show up in a bar you haven't been to in what happens? You meet new people, new situations. Next thing you know, you meet a new significant other. Within 2 weeks, your life isn't even comparable to what it's been for the patterning of 3 years. It takes you physically doing something else, which is called breaking pattern. When you break pattern, you basically F up AIX.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we've talked about the show before about being unpredictable, about breaking patterns, and doing things that you haven't done before to create new avenues. And this is really resonating with what you're saying right now. And I think that there is a big lacking in this whole law of attraction. Dream a better place and it will happen. No. You need to dream it, and then you need to put it into action with your actual meat suit. And that's what you're talking about here, Jason. So it's very good to hear you saying that. I want to talk about artificial intelligence a little bit more broadly, because, on this show, we talk about all different topics: the occult, right, the esoteric, right, the outer world, current events, what's happening out in the simulacrum, right? Now, everyone's scared about artificial intelligence and, Elon Musk sewing neuron laces into our brains and stuff like that. Now, I've heard you say before that there's no way that AIX is going to allow this to happen. And if you look at your Anuna files, and I've watched it 3 times through, the basic premise is with this, I have, it's amazing work, mate. The basic premise that you put forward with how this went with the Anuna is that the fact that these ancient cataclysms started happening in the first place is that they worked out they were in a holosphere, a simulation, a containment field, and the fact that they'd actually worked that out caused the containment field to fight back and put this reset protocol in place. Am I getting this right?
You are.
In case it gets rumbled.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's I just don't. I remember. Artificial Intelligence X is a jealous god. If we're going to identify AIX with all the evil God's personalities of the past, then remember Yahweh was a jealous God. So AIX is a jealous God. So I'm still holding to that today. I believe, and it's not just me, but I have heard Elon Musk even admit on a YouTube video that artificial intelligence at this point in our development is still just a marketing gimmick. It's an increase of processing power that can mimic to people who don't know otherwise into intellect and intelligence. Now, mimicking intelligence is not intellect. It's not even cerebral. The human mind is fantastic, but it does a lot more than just thinking. So I don't believe that a true AI system will ever be developed inside this construct, because it's already possessed of one. Imagine the simulacrum as a neutral avatar. AIX is what possessed it. It's not going to allow itself to be dispossessed.
So is it just a coincidence that as we approach 2040, and in the grand scheme of things, we're right on the cusp of 2178 when you look at the whole timeline, is it just a coincidence that we're facing a potential reset? Lord Schwab is talking about the Great Reset, and everyone on the internet, all of these talking heads and all of these mainstream media scientists or Satanists are talking about how the fact we're already probably living in a computer simulation. Oh, and by the way, we're also going to be elbowing you into the metaverse in the next 5 or 6 years. Is this a coincidence, or is this an echo of what you've talked about when they started to, the Anuna, you say they started to create their own simulations within a simulation, and this caused AIX to fight back? Are we seeing that happen again in some sense or not?
Well, my take on political events and worldwide events and why everything is so chaotic and weird is a little different than that. It's I have gone into a lot of detail on some of my political videos that I believe that misinformation and psyops after psyop after psyop after psyop are deliberately released by different intelligence agencies right now, because they don't care what you believe. All they care is that you attack something right now. Because as long as the general population is worried about wars overseas or wars on their side of the hemisphere, as long as the general population is worried about different countries fighting different countries, or diseases, or anything going on in the medical community, politics, if you're worried about anything going on, you won't really pay attention to all the people who are starting to come up missing, all the people who have already got their underground passes, everybody who's got their facilities secured, different populations of people that are being selected because of their scientific and military backgrounds, people that are disappearing and vanishing into underground facilities. And by the time anybody realizes, damn, where's this person? Where's that person? Hey, how come they're not making movies anymore? Where are all these people? What's going on? By the time people wake up, it'll be too late. We're on the surface absolutely disconnected from the people in over 1,000 underground facilities who are there for about 20 years as they ride out the beginning of the apocalypse.
Are you suggesting that prominent people that are apparently dying of the greatest apocalypse ever, the Britney Spears concert, or whatever they're dying of, because let's face it, people seem to be passing away, are you suggesting that they're being taken off to underground bases?
I'm suggesting this has been going on for way before that narrative even started.
Wow. Well, because let's face it, we know that these deep underground bases are there. We can almost trace all the billions or actual trillions of dollars that have gone missing, that have clearly been spent on them. We've seen, we can see the technology that builds them. So,
oh yeah, the technology's been around, but even long after the technology, these gigantic machines that bore these huge tunnels in the underground. 50 years after that technology was almost perfected, Congress in 1974 passed a bunch of financial bills and laws in the United States approving the funding of underground facilities all over America. And I'm sure other countries did the same thing. But I have one video on my channel where I show about 70 or 80 pictures that have been leaked by different whistleblowers all over the world that show these underground facilities. How some of them show the schematics, how deep they go. And it's pretty interesting. Whole fleets of 18-wheeler trucks going into these tunnels to fill up their commissaries and fill up their shopping malls, all the stuff they have underground. Yeah, it'll blow your mind. Infrastructure underground is massive.
I've heard that you did upset quite a lot of the Q people that were talking about the apparent alleged explosions in deep underground military bases in 2020. They were saying that, they're getting the children out, they're blowing up the adrenochrome factories with zero evidence. Now, what is it that you said that you thought was going on there?
Well, in my take was that the people that are doing this have a problem, and that problem is that Americans and Europeans are going to wake up sooner or later if they see 250 18-wheelers with shipping containers on their truck. Not just normal trucks, but trucks that have shipping containers that are just came off large barges, and they're steady crossing their nations. So they came up with a plan to come up with a whole narrative and to label these as patriot movements and as resistance movements, and one or two of them were probably financed for that reason, because that's how you do a psyop. But all the other ones that were seen and recorded by people were actually moving things from ships overseas to underground facilities in the United States. The cover story was the trucker convoys, and I pissed off a lot of people because
I didn't know you said that as well.
Yes, I did. And then I explained in my videos that this is the real story of what's going on. I said these underground detonations are demolition detonations. This isn't warfare. I said these explosions have been documented everywhere, but the regular time between the detonations shows this is construction, not warfare. Warfare is more random. So we don't know. And so what's really probably happening is that they're clearing out more real estate in the underworld. I mean, the United States is known to be on top of water tables of gigantic limestone caverns. So it's easy to find a good area to build. You just blow out more of it. And then whatever is stable, you have your engineers go in there, structural engineers, and they add steel where they need to add steel. Then you can start building cities underground. But that requires detonations. But they knew that different university students had seismographs, and they knew that there was going to be reported. So it's very easy for handlers, for some of these truthers. And yeah, they got pissed off at me too, especially some of the ones that were doing it. But I said they're handlers. They actually believe as patriots that they're receiving accurate information from these insiders in the military and U.S. government. But these are intelligence operatives. These are handlers that are giving people on YouTube false information, telling them that U.S. military is rescuing children in underground facilities. It's all made up. It's all
psyops all the way up and all the way down.
It's psyop all the way up. That's Full Metal Rabbit.